What labs should I do? I get asked this question almost every single day. In fact, I'm getting asked this question more and more often because there are more and more lab companies that are available where you can directly get lab testing done without any doctor's orders, without seeing a doctor at all. Now, I think this is a really great trend because I think that every one of us deserves to have the right data to take the best possible care of ourselves. But the problem that I'm seeing is people are now coming into me with labs that they've done through some online company, and they have no idea what to do with the information. They're signing up for memberships where these labs are being repeated every 4 or every 6 or every 12 months, and they still don't know what to do with the information. Now, I think it's fantastic that more and more labs are available directly to patients. But what I'm seeing is it's not helping people get better. People are still not sure what to do with the information, and they're feeling even more confused and overwhelmed with having extra data. So I want to talk about some things today around labs that I hope this will be really helpful for you. So the first thing is, what labs should I do? Well, that is a huge question, a very important question, and not an easy one to answer. The easiest way that I can answer this question is, it depends. What are your goals? What are your targets? And what things do you want to accomplish? Do you simply want to know every possible area that you can improve? Well, then you can do a very comprehensive panel of labs. Or are there some specific areas you're improving that you know already are out of target? Like, for example, maybe your cholesterol panel or your blood sugar levels, or maybe some of your nutrient levels. So what labs to do really depends on what has been abnormal in the past and what are your goals in the future. What is it that you're trying to improve? So that one is hard to answer, but it's an important question to think about. The next question is, well, how often do I need to do the labs? Well, that depends again on which type of lab. There are some labs that are not going to change. For example, your blood type. Your blood type is like your eye color or your height. It's not going to change. You don't need to repeat it. Once you know your blood type, you don't need to repeat it again. I'm seeing some of these panels where it's being offered every 6 months. And I'm like, well, that's just a money-making thing, unfortunately. So it depends on if you're actually working on an area. If you're working on, say, blood sugar control, insulin resistance, that's probably something you want to track every 3 to 6 months. Maybe you're working on managing thyroid function and you're looking at all the thyroid hormone levels. That may be something you want to check every 8 to 12 weeks, especially if you make a change. So if your labs are abnormal and you're working on them, you want to probably check sooner. If they're great, you maybe only need to check every few years. And if they never change, you only need to check once, like your blood type. So the next thing is, well, how do I know if they're normal or not? This is such a key area that I want to cover here. There's something called the reference range. No matter what lab you go to or what test you do, there's going to be a reference range involved with that. That reference range is considered normal, and it's based on the population averages of who went to the lab. So roughly around 90% of people who are going into a lab are falling within that what's called normal or reference range. Unfortunately, 90% of people are not healthy. In fact, 90% of people are unhealthy. And so oftentimes the reference range of a traditional lab is quite skewed in the unhealthy range. We need to be thinking about things from the perspective, what's optimal? Is this actually optimal health? This is especially true with things like nutrient levels and thyroid hormones. Also true about other hormones as well. But it's really, it applies to almost all labs. So knowing what the optimal range is very important. And knowing what your trend is also very important. So for example, if I told you, well, Joe, your cholesterol's 250 today, would that be good or bad? Well, only if we know where it started. So if 6 months ago, Joe's cholesterol was 350 and now it's 250, that's a really nice improvement. But if a year ago, Joe's cholesterol was, let's say, 170 and now it's 250, That's not good news. Something's shifted, something's changed. So I always like to tell my patients the most important thing about labs is the trend. In other words, what direction is it going? Is it going up or down? I see patients coming in all the time and they're really upset because they see that their lab results are abnormal, but they didn't look back at the one 6 months ago to see it's improved by half or it's gotten worse. They don't know. So keeping track of the trends is really important, and knowing what is the optimal range is even more important, because you could be normal but not optimal, and that's often why a lot of my patients are still feeling bad, and they've come in and said, well, my doctor did my labs and they said they're all normal. Well, normal is not the same as optimal. It just means it's common. And unfortunately, being fat, sick, tired, and depressed is what's common now, not being healthy and vibrant. So knowing what the reference range is, knowing what your trends are, knowing what your goals are, and tracking the things that you're working on shifting. Those are the things that I would be doing. And the frequency depends on how much you're doing and how abnormal they were too. If I see somebody with really elevated liver enzymes, I might check them in 4 weeks or something like that. So unfortunately, a lot of these answers is it depends. But I hope that thinking through this helps you. And here's the most important thing I want you to think about. What am I going to do with this information? In fact, before I order any tests with any patients, we talk through this together. What are we going to do with this information? Is it something I can change? Is it something I will change? Is it something I want to change? So, for example, genetic testing can be very, very helpful for people. However, you can't really change your genetics. Now, you can change how they're expressed and things that influence it. So it could be helpful, but let's use the example of cholesterol. If you're already doing everything you can to regulate your cholesterol level, you know you're not going to add any more medication, and we're not going to change anything, then why are we checking it every 6 months? If you're doing everything you can and you're not going to do anything different, we don't need to keep checking it all that often. So can I do something about it? Will I do something about it? And do I want to do something about it? I actually think this is the most important place to start before we do any labs. And then the last thing I want to say here today is get help. Get help. I'm seeing more and more people coming in with labs that they've done on their own, but even more confused and frustrated because now they have data. They don't know what it means. They don't know what to do with it. So if you're struggling, please reach out. Please reach out, let us help you, or find someone that can support you in your area to figure out what tests should I do? How often should I do them? What am I looking for? Is it optimal or is it just normal? And what can we do to shift and change these labs? I think that being informed and having data is critically important in your wellness journey, but knowing what to do with the information is even more important. We're here to help. Let us know if you need that.